the last question is, when did you stop wearing your wedding ring?
Hey guys, welcome to Widowhood. I'm Kendra. I've got with me
Amanda. And this week we're talking about our personal marriages and family, our immediate, and dating. We've gotten that question a whole bunch. So we're going to hit both of those topics, which is kind of a lot. But the first question that we always got was, or that I typically get is, how was your marriage, and how were you, after your spouse died, how were you, feeling and dealing with that loss of that, lifetime partner and all that. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, John and I were together for 28 years, and we were married 27. We met in college, and we had the same groups of friends. All our friends did things together, so that's sort of how we met. We were very different personalities, but we balanced each other really well. I was quiet. He was not quiet. So I remember, like, the first time we went on a date, it's the only time I think somebody asked me question after question after question, and I probably talked more than I ever had because he meant I was going to talk to him, and you could go out with somebody else and sit there in complete silence and never say anything. But that wasn't going to happen with him. So we were married 27 years and had 4 kids together. And I will be 100% honest. I'd say we were great. The first 2 years were very hard for us. John had lived alone for probably 10 years. He was a little bit older than me. I had never lived away from home except for college. And learning to live together and learning to adapt to each other's ways. He was very particular about how he liked things done. And I was like, you should just be glad I did your laundry, not how I folded it. So the first 2 years were rough for us, and we did go to counseling the first 2 years. And at one point, I even went home to my dad's house, and I said, Dad, I've made a mistake. I screwed up here. And, because I'm Christian, I felt like I made a covenant with God and with John. And so it wasn't the immediate answer for me to leave and never go back. So we started going to counseling. And through that counseling, it was invaluable because I learned how to respond to him. He learned how to respond to me. And after about 2 years, we found out that we were going to have a baby. And I was shocked. But at the same time, Lily is what made us a family. And she glued us together. And that's one thing that we agreed we were not going to share her. I didn't want to only have her on the weekends.
Yeah.
And he didn't either. So once we had her, it was like, and I know this isn't the case for everybody. This is what happened for me. When we had her, everything smoothed out. And I learned I loved him even more because he was such a good dad. And he was so good with her. And I realized this is a lot to fight for. I don't want to miss any of this. So after that 25 years, we were good. You're going to have times where you're irritable with each other and you're angry and you say something, snappy, whatever. But for the most part, we got along good because we learned in the beginning this is how we have to work to be able to stay together.
Did you guys continue counseling, or did you?
We went a couple of times
on and off throughout marriage?
We lost a baby after Lily, and we went to counseling together after that, not because, we were angry with each other or weren't getting along. It was just mainly, how do we move forward from this, because we'd never experienced anything like that. And then we actually got to the point where when John was a pastor, we did marriage counseling for people. So,
and you learn a lot.
Yeah,
I think.
Just by hearing other people's stories, and John took the lead and of course helped him through it, but I was there and just learning from him.
Yeah.
So I would say that we did counseling probably another 2 times.
Yeah.
But, there's going to be times that you cannot seem to get along, and
You say that so nicely.
and you
Yeah.
want to just say, you go somewhere and I'll go somewhere.
Yeah.
But we were really good about not going long periods of time, not speaking or not
Yeah.
being mad with each other. He couldn't stand not to talk. I can
Yes.
be quiet for a long time, but he would say, "Hey, we've got to talk about this."
Yeah.
And we did, and it worked for us. What about you guys?
Oh, no, like, when we first met, Mike was living with his mother. So, like, I think women and their boys, you just like his mom was, he was like 28. His mom's doing his laundry. And I'm like John, I'm very particular. So, and Mike and I eloped, he had asked me to marry him on like the second date, and I was like, "You're crazy." He's like, "You're gonna marry me," and I was like, "Yeah, that's not happening." Once he met my family, my dad's like, "That's the guy you should marry," and I said, "No, I'm not. That's not gonna happen. I'm not getting married." And 5 years later,
You're married.
shoot, two, we're married. And then I tell my dad, and he was like, "What?" but yeah, so we ended up just eloping and getting married, and. Yeah, for sure. Like the first 2 years, now I will say we did live together before marriage. So I am more like John, like you got to fold the towels like this. And Mike was probably like you, like I just don't give a crap. So he pretty much let me do, whatever with the house and whatever with, choices. We learned early on like what our strengths were and, what they were not. So I would let him do everything with the cars, and then I would, I let him pick out like paint colors and furniture. Like I can count on one hand, and every single time I'm like, I hate this paint color, or I have furniture now that I let him pick out, and we laugh about it because it's like every time you sit on it, it's the most uncomfortable furniture. Like I don't eat, but he was just so tired of shopping. He just said, I just get
want this
this.
one.
And I folded.
Yeah.
And I hate the furniture. It's awful. But we did counseling through our church when we were really involved in our church. I would say in Ohio, like the 10 years, we had a solid, like really good, where we were both growing in our jobs. We were, got to a really good place. We also did like marriage groups. We did like reading the 5 languages
we
of
did
love.
that.
And so once you learn that from somebody, and I will be honest, like I'm a person who gets mad and I'm like, I want to throw in the towel. And Mike was like, literally, Amanda, we're staying together forever. And like there was never a doubt in his mind. If I ever would say like, dude, I'm out. He would be like, well, I'm just going to chase you down until you just give in. And so I kind of knew early on, even if I said, I'm at a point where I need a break, he would be like, nope, not happening. So we knew early on that, that was our values too, that, divorce was not an option. And anybody, like you said, who says they're blissfully married for 20 years, we just hit our 17-year anniversary. And I kind of tell everybody, like the 3 years prior to that, we were opening a new business. I went back to school, and I was going to school and working. And so the last couple of years were really...
It's a whole different level of
stress. It is, because, I'm up at 11 o'clock, doing schoolwork, and he's passed out snoring because he's got to get up at 5. So we just were on different schedules. So, but actually, I think it was Christmas time, we kind of looked at each other and said, either we get our shit together or this is not working. Like we weren't like meshing. So he got back into therapy, and I got back into like self-care and reading and work and things that I wanted to do. And we got back to dating.
Right.
And that's one thing we made a commitment to do, is once a week that we would have alone time and we would date. And
that's hard to do when you have kids.
It is, because it's hard to do when you have different schedules
Yeah.
too.
That's one thing I wish we had done we were really good about dating before we had kids, but after we had kids, we didn't spend a lot of time just he and I together. And I think that's really important. That's one thing I would change, or one thing I would do different.
My mom and dad dated. They had a Monday night date night every Monday. I mean, like literally, they could be screaming, fighting, but they were going out on Monday night date night, and we always knew that. So Mike and I would always say like Saturday night was always our night. So we could hate each other. We could be in a fight that we hadn't spoke for 2 days, but Saturday night you better get dressed, look nice, be in the car at 6:00.
Yeah.
You know, that's just kind of how we did it. And like I said, if I would say the last 3 years were a struggle, but I would say the 3 months prior to him passing, in my opinion, we were for the first time in a couple of years, like, you know, on the same page, like vibing, you know, consistently dating and
Working together.
really working together, which is kind of when we started that like percentage thing, like where are you at, where am I at? So, and that really worked for us because, like John, Mike was a great dad. So when Mike met Morgan, she was, you know, I think 4 or 5, and he was like fun dad, and she didn't really have a father in her life, so that was a huge void that I needed, and I recognized that she needed, and that was one of the things that I loved. I mean, that was most, you know, the most important, and that I recognized that I needed.
It opens up a different way to view that
Yeah.
person.
And then, you know, when I had Morgan very young, you know, I had to go through college with Morgan, and so I was in my, you know, 20s. When Hudson came along, I was in my late 30s. So you're a different parent at 20 than you are at 40. And not only having more time, money, and resources at this age, I had a partner, and Mike was 100% all in. From the second he put Hudson in his arms, he was like the 100%. Like whatever you need, got up in the middle of the night. I had to have surgery on my elbow about 3 months after, full time. Daddy-daughter dances. So that kind of, you love that person differently when you see them parenting, especially your kids, because they're like, you look at them and go, I could never love anything more than this little person.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they become teenagers. And
I know one time that you think you're not going to love somebody more, but John's uncle got sick. He was 91, and he had dementia, and he came and stayed with us.
I remember that story.
Watching John look after him, I was like, I married the best one. I
Yeah,
mean, he was
for
just
sure.
so good with him.
Yep.
And it was a whole different side to him. And here he is 55, and I'm seeing a brand new side of
Yeah.
him that I hadn't seen before. He was good to our kids, but watching him help a old man do everything,
that's tough.
I was like, it showed a side of him that was gentle and tender, but at the same time, I was like, he is hot.
Yeah.
You know, because he was so good with him, and I thought, how did I get so lucky to have a person that can be both?
Yeah.
You know?
Because that is hard. And like Mike was very, very present at his job. Like when he was at work, he was all in. But when he was with the girls, he was all in. And it's, you know, it's hard to like compartmentalize those things. Like when I'm somebody who has like 10 things going on in my mind at all times. So it's hard for me to really be 100% focused on one task. And I watched him do that, and that was valuable. Like I was like,
that he could cut off
and I
this
just was
part
like,
to take
I
care.
love that. There were so many things that he did now that I look back and go, I love that. But also, with that being said, like when someone dies, or like you said, if you break up with somebody, you only remember the good. And there were, you know, and I do sometimes, you know, will reflect on, honestly, like a fight that we had, and then I, you know, because he's not here, and I don't want to feel that sad or that loneliness, But then I think, what a dumbass thing to fight about. Like, I mean, I literally remember fighting about the way he ran the vacuum because
Yeah.
I was particular about that. And, or if he would leave something in the sink, it would always be one fork in the sink.
Yeah.
And it would irritate me where I literally would lay in bed at night and go, I got to go clean that damn fork.
And now you would care
And now
less.
I'm like, how stupid is that? But I would be mad at him for 2 days
Yeah.
over a fork in the sink. And I feel like he would do it because he knew it would like push that button. And it's funny now,
Yeah.
but you know, those are the things that you actually miss.
It puts
I
in
miss-
perspective the
Yes.
things that you do take for granted. And I feel like we tried to never take each other for granted, but there's so many things that happen every day that I would say thank you again, in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So my biggest thing that I miss, and this is what people have asked, I miss him. I mean, Mike was a great provider. If I came home and said, this broke or this fell apart or we need this fixed at the gym or I need money for this, he'd be like, I got it. I'll take care of it. Like he was always the person that I could go to. And now it's like, oh shit, that's got to be me. I got to be the one that's fixing
Right.
stuff. And Morgan is an adult, and having a daughter, and you have in your 20s, our kids they're about the same age. I don't want to be relying on her as a partner, and I feel like she feels like responsible for my mental health or for how I'm feeling, or if I'm feeling some way that she needs to fix it because she'll see it, and I don't want her to do that. I'm like, that's not your responsibility. That's mine. So, those are the things that I really, really miss, is like just having that person and be like, I got this. Don't even
Yeah.
worry about it. Because that's a big deal. I would take a fork in the sink every single
Yeah,
day,
every day.
to have that person, like when something goes wrong, to call. Like I don't have that.
Yeah.
And I have friends. Like I said, I know that if I called you and said I'm having a bad day, you'd be like, where are we meeting?
Where are we going?
Where are we going?
Yeah.
I'll be over to pick you up. I
Yeah.
mean, even when I have said I don't want to do, you're like, I'm coming.
We're still
Then
going.
I'm picking you up. So be dressed. And that's important. But those are the things that I miss. But I don't want to say, like, again, because marriage is hard, and my
is.
parents struggled at it. I mean, they as they got older, their marriage was, and they helped other people as well, like y'all did. But I didn't see healthy relationships growing up, and I didn't feel value. So it's hard, like we talked about in the therapy, to value someone else and to learn. And you got to bend and break a little bit to be married. So Mike was the perfect partner for me because he would tolerate all my, my craziness. He would just say, "You're a control freak if you can't," and I am.
Well, it's hard to have two of those.
Yeah, and so
I wasn't, and
Yeah.
John was a control freak, and so if you had two, I think it would be so
oh yeah,
difficult.
and he wasn't. Mike was the fix-it guy. So if I couldn't control something, he would say, "Tell me what it is, and then I'll take care of it." And it was great. That was anytime we did an event or anything, that was him. So that's really where I'm missing. But, our experiences are different than and I'm sure other people will say, and I know a lady sent me a message on Facebook that said her and her husband were together for 43 blissful years. It was, she never slept on the couch, or neither one of, and I was like, wow, that's awesome, but I don't buy that. There's no way that you were blissfully married for 43 years and no one ever slept on the couch. No one ever, had a harsh word.
Right.
But, if that is your experience, great. But I'm like, that wasn't us. The last 3 years were tough, but I look back and go, I'm glad that I had those experiences because it made me tougher to deal with what I'm going through now.
Right.
That I learned how to cope, deal, and fix things myself. Because there were things when I was in school and that Mike didn't. He was like, I don't know that answer. I can't help you. So I would have to do on my own. So it made me stronger, but it also made me realize how much that I miss him and that I'm that loneliness and that. But I would say overall, out of 17 years, and we were together 23, most of them were good. And we were good partners. And did we argue? Heck yeah. Did we fight dirty sometimes? Absolutely. But never, ever did we say, pack your bags and go.
Yeah.
Never did we, we had times where we wanted to say that, and we had times where we were like, this isn't working, and we either fixed it or separate. But like you, Mike said to me, I could never not see Morgan every day. And then when it was Hudson, I could never go a day without seeing I couldn't go a day without seeing Hudson.
And that's just our experience. I know,
Yeah.
Other people who are married, you have a completely different situation. And I'm not suggesting that sometimes you do need to stay with somebody if there's issues that can't be fixed, but that wasn't our issue. And I was very fortunate in that my parents were married 60 years.
Yeah.
My aunt and uncle were married 60 years. My grandparents were married. There was no one in my family who was divorced. They worked it out.
Yeah.
But on that same issue, they were good to each other.
Yeah.
It's easy to work things out with somebody if they're good to you and you're good to them and you compromise. But everybody doesn't have that.
No, and there are some like non-negotiables
Right.
in marriage, and if those are broke, then and again, a lot of people co-parent really, really well. My sister and her husband got divorced. I feel like they co-parented. They're still friends. They co-parented really well, and again, that's great. And but if you. Some people have that. There was never Mike never did anything, and I never did anything that was like, that we can't fix that.
Yeah.
It was never, and there obviously are some things that you can't fix, but we never, there was that one line that we didn't cross. And again, did we yell at each other and say mean things? Yeah. Did I know his triggers and he knew mine? Yes. But, the certain things that we said in this relationship we won't do, we never did. And so to me, it was always like, this is fixable, and I still want to fight for this. And I knew, like I said, Mike said, you're never leaving me. Like, I mean, it was just, we kind of made a joke about it. Like, he was like, I'll stalk you forever. Like,
Yeah.
but I knew, even if I said, I want out, he'd be like, yeah, no, not doing it. So, he was ride or die for me from literally our first date. When I say our first date, I mean our first date. He kissed me and said, I'm going to marry you. And I called my friend and said, I'm going to have to get rid of this guy because I don't even know how to, he's like, he already loves me. And she was like, Amanda, no, he doesn't. And I was like, no, I'm telling you, he does. And I talked to her the other day, and we made a joke about that because I called her from standing in my, he walked up the door, and I immediately called her and was like, I think this guy really likes me. And she was like, you met him a week ago. And I was like, no, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm not kidding. So, but again, that was our experience. So I look back at our marriage, and of course I have some regrets, but it was good. And it was, my family up in Ohio we were very close, all, close in distance with each other. So moving here, it made us only rely on each other, and
just each
I
other more.
think that was good for us. And I would say, because a lot of people have messaged me, would you consider coming back to Ohio? And absolutely not. We built a life here, and this is the only, this was our dream, and I still plan on fulfilling my end of the deal. And it forced us to like, oh crap, I can't go call my sister. I can't go to my brothers. I don't have that option. So
Right. You
it
had to work
forced
together
us to say, we might not talk for 2 days, but we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And Mike was very loving, and I knew, he always wanted to work it out. And he was always willing to work on himself too. He was always willing to we'll go to therapy, we'll do this.
I think part of it is realizing that you're not perfect, and even though you see something that you don't like that they're doing, there's probably something you're doing too.
Yeah.
And having to realize it can't all be one-sided. It can't be just one person, and you have to learn to work with each other. And we were early on, I think 3 weeks we'd been dating, and he said, I love you. And I said, I love you too.
Oh, no,
and
no.
I knew that I was going to marry him probably after 3 weeks. And we were engaged in like 8 or 9 months and married within a year and a half. And I think we had this talk when we sat down, about getting married, and he's like, "We're making a deal. This is a deal.
Yep.
We're not breaking the deal, and whatever we have to do to fix it." And that's kind of, I know some people don't take it serious, but for some reason we took it so serious.
Yeah.
Like that was one thing that, even when I thought in the beginning, oh, I've messed up.
Yep.
I was like, this is the deal we made.
Yeah.
And, when he passed away, I felt like we kept our promise. We kept our end of the deal.
Yep.
Both of us did, and we were faithful to each other, and we were happy. And every day isn't going to be perfect. But when I look back, that's 28 years that will be some of the best years of my life.
Yeah.
I have more life ahead of me, but those 28 years I'll never forget.
Yeah. And that's and we battled some infertility and miscarriages and that for us only brought me closer to Mike because he was so like attentive and I have had some major injuries and major and Mike was like so attentive. I mean, if I needed, help in the shower, if I need help in the bath, he was like, I'm there. Like, so that only, I was like, I'm in the medical field and I'm like, dude, you're good. Like, you can, like, I'm not even like that nurturing. So to see him like that, it was a whole different, and especially down here, we didn't have anybody else. So it did make me realize that those 23 years, I mean, those were some of the best times. I had the greatest times of my life with him. So that's, what's hard kind of moving on from. And I think that's where I'm kind of stuck. And I know people say, give it time. And I get that. So, that's what, people have been asking, like, how do you move on from that? And like, that's where I'm stuck. A lot of people have asked about dating. Like, I know, like, it still feels, and I have to say this, we had to go to Lowe's, was it Lowe's or Home Depot, one of those the other day, to get stuff. We do a big Halloween thing, so I'm, rigging stuff my best way. So I need zip ties and little hooks and a hot glue gun. So I had to go to Home Depot. And a guy walked by, and I was with Hudson, and I go, that guy was cute. And she literally said, what? And I go, that guy, he was cute, a good looking guy, he was young. And she said, that is betraying Dad. And I was like, oh, damn. So I said, well, what about, if I'm lonely? And she goes, nope, never. And I go, okay, so I know that's going to be, at some point, I don't want to be alone. I am lonely. That's where I'm at right now, is like having that other person. So, and again, like I said, I'm not that close with my family, and that's a choice that I made, and I'm okay with that. And I do have like cousins and I said that down here that have really been there for me, my aunt and uncle, but that loneliness. So I don't know how to deal with it. I'm journaling. I need to do more, and I know that. And I know Lord gave us some great coping mechanisms, which I'm not doing. But, I'm just, other than the journaling, which is like, I feel like it's like angry writing now. I'm just like writing mean words, So I guess, all the big things that I had to do, I've gotten done. I've gotten titles switched. I've got everything in my name. I've got things paid. I've got everything that, logistically I had to get done for Mike's death, I've done. And I felt like proud of myself for like a day, like I did this. And now it's like that realization that, oh my God, it's just all on you. So that's where I'm at. And, I don't know how to move forward from that. So, other than staying in therapy and doing the other things, like I said, that I'm not doing. And I think that's just being honest. Like, I'm not doing that. And I think being further out that, like you said, this was a tough year for you.
Yeah.
And
it still was.
Like, I'm not looking forward to the holiday. Like, it's a struggle for me to even like think about the holidays, because I feel like I mean, Mike would dress up like Santa and have it be on our Ring camera. I hope Hudson never hears this. So it would look, she would see that on the Ring.
Yeah.
He would put snow by the back door, which annoyed me because it was stuff from like a diaper you make it. God, and it'd be all over, and she would play with it. And like, I don't even know how you do that. So there are so many things that he did that I'm like, crap, I don't know how to do that. And, you know, like I said, like, for her, it's a betrayal. And even Morgan's like, mm-mm. But I know I'm not ready, but is there a point where you feel ready? And I know you, so I know where you're at, but
I think it's truly different for each person. I know a few months after John passed, Oliver came up to me. He was 16 at the time, and he sat down with me. He said, "Mom, I've got to talk to you about something." And I was like, "Okay." He said, "You're not going to date, are you?" He said, "Like, I don't want a stepdad."
yeah.
And I said, "No, Oliver." I said, "Your dad was it for me."
Yep, that's what I told
And I said, I had him for 28 years. Some people never even get a year with somebody like we had. And I said, "No, I don't have any plans to date." Because that was like 3 months after he passed away. And then, you do get lonely. And you do miss having a companion that's, that you can talk with and have adult conversations with. And you can do that with friends. But I loved being married. And I think I was a good wife. And I don't believe that I'll never be a wife again. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But probably a year after John passed away, I was at a gas station, and a guy was there, and he started speaking to me, and he said, "Are you single?" And I was like, "I don't know." It was like the first time anybody had asked me that, and I was like,
weird question.
Am I? And I was like, "I guess." And so it's just a big mind shift from belonging to somebody else for 28 years, and my kids didn't like it. I think they felt like it was, they couldn't see me as Kendra. They saw me as their mom and as their dad's wife. And I was those things, but I'm also Kendra.
Yeah.
And so I think it's different for each person. I have a family member that was married to his wife for 60 years, and 3 months after she passed, he married again. Now, in any way, shape, or form, do I think that's disrespectful to her? I don't.
Yeah.
I think he missed the companionship. He was a good husband, and he met somebody that made him enjoy the days that he has. And I don't think it's that you're dishonoring that person. I think it's that you're still alive. You still have life ahead of you. And some people don't remarry again, or they don't date again, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
My dad's been gone for 5 years. My mom's never dated, and she doesn't seem interested, and, that's fine.
Yeah. That's mine too.
And I think you have to be really careful with what you take in from other people if you make the decision to date or not date. Because some people say, you need to get back out there. And some people are like, I'll give you an example. I went to dinner with a guy about a year after John passed, and I saw a family friend there. And I introduced him. And the next time I saw that family friend, he was like, "Do you think that's wise? Do you think that John would be happy with that?" And I was like, first off, none of your business.
Right.
Second off, John isn't here. I was a good wife to him. I kept my end of the deal. This isn't my choice. I didn't see the correlation between me never going to dinner with somebody again was going to honor him.
You being alone for the rest of your life is not. Yeah, that doesn't honor him, and I don't think he would want that.
Right.
I mean, I just don't.
We joked about it.
Yeah.
We would joke like when I was probably 30, I had a health scare, and because I'm a nurse, I had diagnosed myself with a brain tumor, and I was convinced I was going to die. And so I told John, I was like, "Look, when I'm dead, I want you to have a wife, and I want you to marry somebody that's going to be good to Lily, because she was our only kid at the time. And I named this girl that was at our church. I was like somebody like her.
Yeah.
And he was like, sweet, she's hot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to kill you,
Yep.
you know. And we joked about it, but I was 48.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't 80. And there's nothing wrong with an 80-year-old dating.
Yeah.
I tried to get my grandma to date, you know, and she wouldn't do it. But, you know, that's the thing about becoming a widow at a younger age. You're looking at a different set of circumstances than somebody is that's already had 60 years with somebody, you know?
Yeah. I feel like dating is so different now, too.
It
And
is.
it's all, like, online, and I just, it's just different. So I don't even know how to, like, someone asked, you know, how do you do it? Dude, I don't know. Like, I have no idea.
I hadn't been on a date since I was 20.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
haven't been on a date since I was 20. And
know?
but like you said, we held up our end of the deal. And Mike and I used to joke too. Like Mike was kind of a hypochondriac. Like if he had anything, he thought, you know, it's this.
Yeah.
You know, if I have a stomach ache, I'm dying. And I would always be like, listen, buddy, you pass on. I'm going down to the nearest Target, and we're getting us a new daddy. Like, keep messing around.
Yeah.
And he would always make a joke like 3 months after I'm going, you'll have somebody else. And I'm like, you're damn straight I will. Like, yeah, for sure. You're replaceable.
But you don't think it's going to happen.
But it's a joke.
Yeah,
We
it's
always
a joke.
would
You
say
don't
that.
think it's going to happen.
And even like, because, you know, when we have a gym, so walking through the gym, I always talk to people. Now, I don't think I'm flirtatious when I talk. You know me. I
don't think you
don't flirt. But he'd be like, that guy likes you. And I'd be like, that guy is 20, and he was asking me where to get a towel. But like he would always be like, guys don't talk to girls unless they, you know, want to have sex with them, or no guy wants to be your friend.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, they really do. And typically 9 times out of 10, he was right. Most guys don't. They have no desire to be your friend. So, but it's just a whole different. It's just a different feeling. Like I saw somebody the other day, and they were talking to me, and he said, like, are you like single? And I'm like, I didn't know there was levels of singleness.
Levels of single, yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I just had to say, I don't know what that means. But I don't, like, in my heart, I don't feel like I'm detached from Mike yet, where I'm able to be fair to somebody.
Right.
And like, do I see guys that are good looking? Do I know guys? Have I been asked out? Yes. I just don't know if I'm there. Like, I'm not there. And I don't know when, but like you said, I mean, meeting someone organically like that is much different than the online.
Right.
As what everybody does now is online.
Right.
So
I did have a male friend who lost his wife, and he got on a dating site and started going on a lot of coffee dates with people, and he did meet somebody, and they're still seeing each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, but I preferred, you know, just meeting somebody
organically.
You know,
yeah, normal. Like, to us, that's how we
yeah.
dated when we were 20.
And I think, you know, the hard thing for me at first was realizing people aren't going to be just like John. He was all I knew. You know, he was it for 28 years, and there's so many different kind of people. And I've made some good friends, and figured out, I don't like this, or I do like this.
Yeah.
But, you know, what I like now is different than when I was 20. That's the last time I went on a date.
Yeah. And you adapt to
Yeah.
people's like behaviors, and like, okay, I do, like, I would never know that I like a guy that can fix stuff, and a guy that's like, I'll move that, you think I do that, or like, hey, I'll take your car. I think I'm an alpha, so I'm always like fighting for that, like, it's my rules, my house, where I need a man that's that same way, that can be like, and to Mike, I was able to like back down and let him lead on a lot of situations, and that's something hard for me. So I feel like dating like that, like organically, like meeting someone would be more natural than like the website thing. And again, I'm just not there, but you answered a question that someone asked is, when you date, which again, I'm not really there, how do you, are you comparing them all? Is John the bar and everybody has to get up to that, or is it different? And
No, I think my counselor told me to look at, he said, make a list of the things that made you comfortable or that you loved about John. He said, those are characteristics that you like. He said he had them, but those are things that Kendra likes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, there are certain things that are not negotiable for me. And so that wasn't just John. He was wonderful and he had all the things that I wanted. But knowing him just made me realize these are things that I will look for. Does every person that I ever meet have to have those same qualities? No, they don't. They might have qualities he didn't have.
Yeah. So do you think you compare people to John, or do you think you have this list of things that you like, or you're non-negotiables?
I think it's my list.
I like
now.
that.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to get to there?
Probably, I didn't really date for a year afterwards, and then once I started dating, I think that's when I started making my list of this is things that I like or I don't like. I mean, there's, for example, and Mike and John were similar type people. They took up presents. They were bigger guys. I felt safe whenever I was with him.
Yeah.
And just honestly, I went to dinner with somebody and they didn't have that presence about them.
Yeah.
They were a fantastic person.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say anything bad about them, but they did not make me feel like I was protected or, John was going to never let me walk on the side of the street.
Same thing with Mike. Never opened a car door, never pumped my own gas.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there's just certain things. It doesn't mean that other people aren't good people. It's just they don't have the qualities that appeal to me.
Yes.
So did I go out with him again? No, I didn't. But it's not because there was
Yeah.
anything wrong with him. He just didn't have that. I mean, everybody's got a type,
Yeah, and it's like right when you meet someone, you can tell if like their energy matches yours. And again, if you're, for me, I need somebody that I know that I remember my dad said to Mike, you have to stand up to Amanda because Amanda is always going to fight for the dominant role. And Mike was like, okay. And that wasn't really his personality, but he learned to be that. But Mike was a big guy. I mean,
yes.
We joke when I first met him, he had like a crew cut and wore like polo shirts. And within a year, he was like mohawk, tattoos, piercings, like, that's, I still like that type of man. Like I know that I like, my sister and I used to make a joke, like if you look like you just got out of prison, that's probably my type of guy. And she's like, that is your type. And I'm like, it's terrible, but you like what you like and you can't help it. So the guy at Home Depot, it was actually Lowe's, but looked like that. But he was,
so that's obviously going to catch
heard
your
him
eye.
talking and he was, was well, he spoke well and he was polite. And so it literally, that's what made me look. And he was a bigger guy. And I mean, he was also probably like maybe 30, but I was just making a point. But yeah, you have a type. So essentially, I like that you said you make a list of what you like, and I think that's a good thing. And I think when you get to that point where you're ready, then you make that list.
And I think you have to also realize that just because you date somebody, there's all different levels of that.
Yeah.
You might just want somebody to go eat dinner with once a week, just to spend some time together, to go listen to music or whatever. It doesn't mean that you have completely decided that you're getting married again or, that they're moving into the house with you and your kids.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think that you have to get to that level that you were with your spouse, because that took
that's
years.
A good point.
That took years to happen.
Yeah.
And just because you're lonely and you think I would like to go to dinner with somebody, go to dinner with them. It's just dinner. But if you're not ready, it's perfectly okay to say, you know what, I'm not ready, or I enjoyed meeting you, but I'm still grieving.
Yeah.
And that's one thing too. I think one of the questions
Yeah.
was, how do people feel about dating widows?
Yeah.
You know?
How do you, I mean, like at what point?
Yeah.
And is it a second date that you're like, hey, by the way, my husband, like, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, everybody, if you get to your 40s or 30s, whatever, you probably have a story already.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
And that was something that I had to learn, that if somebody asked me, are you divorced? No, I'm not. You know? And then you end up saying, my husband passed away last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like you'd see this like shock or
Yeah.
horror on their face because you don't think somebody our age
No.
is a widow. But, you know, that was just part of my story. And then you have to decide, you have all these thoughts come in your mind, like, how much is it okay to say about
yeah.
John?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, should I not say anything? And I do have another male friend that he's dated a lot of women. He said, I'll never date another widow. And I was like, why would you say that? How could
Yeah.
you decide you're not going to? He said, I went out with a widow, and all she did from the time we got there until I dropped her off was talk about her husband the entire time. He said it was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever been through. And I started thinking, I was like, have I ever done that? You know.
I feel like I would, that's what I would do. And that's what.
Well, I think that if you're going to date someone who's a widow, you have to realize it's a different situation. They didn't part ways of their own accord.
Mm-hmm.
It was a choice taken from them, you know. And so I think the person that dates a widow has to be very understanding. This was a life that you had before, and you loved that person, and you'll always love that person. But that doesn't mean that you're going to live in that place for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to move forward. I want to have, I mean, I have a family, but I do want to be married again one day.
That's what that's one of
Yeah.
the questions is, do you see yourself? So
Yeah,
you would like
I mean,
to get
I
married.
do. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Right.
But I think anybody that does start a relationship with a widow, they have to be respectful of the fact that that person's name's going to come up in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to decide, I'm not going to talk about this person incessantly because, I mean, you think about if you were on a date with anybody and they talked about another person all the time, would you want to spend time with them again because it didn't feel like they were enjoying their time with you?
Right.
But it's difficult. I mean, it's a whole set of issues that you didn't deal with when you were 20 and you were dating somebody. And your kids will not love it.
So I was going to say that's one of the questions
not
too
gonna
is
love it.
how do you tell your kids and what do you tell your kids? Because if you're going out on one date, I would say, hey, I'm going out, you know, I don't know necessarily I would even tell my kids. But if you're going to go out on multiple dates with the same person or you start to like this person, now you've got to introduce them to your kids. So can I ask how do you do that? How did you do that? And I know you haven't dated a lot of people, but I know that your kids have met people.
I didn't introduce somebody on a first date.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think when you decide that you're going to spend time with a person, you know, it's up to you. When you decide, okay, this is somebody I want to keep seeing, this is somebody that I want to incorporate into my life, then you do tell your kids, we're having dinner. They're coming over here for dinner. You know, my kids initially, I think, were not ecstatic that I would date because, like I said, they felt like I was mom. But then as time has gone on, they've become more open to the fact that, you know, it's almost 4 years now. So I had a counselor that we talked about this because my counselor's his mother and dad, they had been married since high school. His dad passed away at an early age. And my counselor was like 20 years old. And probably within a year, his mom got married again. And he said, truthfully, I was horrible to her. He said, I was so disrespectful. And he said we didn't speak for a while, and then ultimately my counselor's wife died from cancer, and he said he was 31, I think, and he said he knew very early on, I do want to spend time with somebody again.
Yeah.
It's not that you're dishonoring the person that you were married to, but because you don't want to be by yourself doesn't mean that your time with them wasn't fantastic.
Right.
You know?
And like you held up your end of the deal.
Yeah.
I fulfilled my, the deal that I made with Mike. We said till death. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So initially the kids just weren't thrilled.
No, they weren't.
But
They weren't. And
Really? Yeah.
my counselor actually told me, he said, after my wife passed, I went back and apologized to my mom.
I was going to ask, yeah.
He said, I went back and apologized to her for some of the things that I said to her. He said, but it was coming from a place of, I felt like I had to protect my relationship with my dad.
You almost feel like you have to protect their legacy. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what, like, I feel like I have to, I'm trying to, do all these traditions and things that Mike did with, the holidays and all that. Because, I don't want the kids to forget him or his legacy, or I don't want to dishonor him. I guess I don't even know if that's the right word, but I get that, and that's what. Yeah. So it's been 4 years. Are the kids? Are they like okay with you dating now?
Yeah.
Are they? Oh yeah, all of them
Yeah,
are.
I think so. I think they realize that, the older they've gotten, they're seldom home.
Yeah.
They're always
yeah.
they're teenagers and grown.
Yeah.
And they're, I think they realize that I don't want to just sit in the house by myself.
Yeah.
And so they've adjusted to it. Do I think that I hope that at one point in time they'll be like, oh, I love this person that my mom's involved with. But I think that comes with age and with time that you spend with somebody, and them getting to know them. But I think right now I'm still very protective of my kids in my home.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of people get married soon after they lose a spouse, or they, move in with somebody, or, and that's just not my case at this point in time, and it's not something that I want to do yet.
Yeah.
And
I think everybody is different. Like, you don't know, we only know what we see on the outside.
Yeah.
And what you see on the outside a lot of times is very different than what's on the inside. And so, I mean, we don't know where their relationship was or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like I'm just such a broken person. I don't really have much to offer right now,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like, and I definitely want to protect my home and Hudson for sure, because in her mind Mike could do no wrong. I mean, she doesn't remember spankings or any of that stuff. So I just think that. So, and right up front, you tell people you're a widow when you get on your first date.
Usually that comes up, like,
Yeah.
why aren't you married?
Yeah.
Or have you been married? And, people aren't expecting you to say, yeah, I was married for 27 years.
Yeah.
And my husband died. And they just have this look on their face, like, what do I say back to that?
Yeah.
Because usually somebody says, yeah, I've been married twice, and
Yep.
it didn't work out. And,
Yep.
you just keep moving on in the conversation.
Yeah.
But then inevitably they say, how did he pass?
Yes.
Was he sick? What happened?
Yes. And you tell them that.
And it feels awkward to start off a date saying, well, this is the
Yeah.
story.
Going through, and
Because you're telling something that it's not that I don't want to talk about it, but it's an odd thing to talk about when you go on a first date with somebody.
it's also something that you protect really
Yeah.
close to that's a really close, close friends story. I'm not just like broadcasting it. Well, clearly now I'm broadcasting it
Right.
on a podcast.
I think that's
but,
what we're doing.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I don't.
But it's hard to go from, saying something like that to something lighthearted. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like you're on a date with somebody, and then now you kind of have to segue into
something real heavy.
What are we eating? You know, I mean,
what are we eating? By the way,
yeah. So
no, that's definitely a heavy thing to talk about. So I know you're not married and you're not remarried, and I know as far as right now you have no plans on. I mean, there's no prospects of remarriage, but so there are days that you're lonely, and there are days that you're. So how do you deal with that now? Because I think you're in a better place mentally and spiritually, physically, all that than I am. And I told the girls, I'm like, this weekend we're going back to church. We used to go to church every Sunday, whether we, hell or high water.
Yeah.
We're going back to church. We need to get something that's we can grasp onto, because everybody in my house is like, we're all in an angry place. So we're just like going at each other and watching. We watch our pastor from Ohio. Because we always we love Pastor Mike's. We were watching him online, but we're in our pajamas, eating a bowl of cereal, doing it. We need to get up and go.
Yeah.
And
I think that's one thing that helps me the days that I've been lonely is I will allow myself to wear my pajamas and lay around all day long occasionally, but I can't do that every day because I know it's going to be a slippery slope for me. And I'm going to fall into that. So the days that I felt lonely, I got up and got ready, and I said, let's go try this restaurant. And so I was fortunate that my kids still live with me, so I always had somebody to do something with.
Yeah, and I'm the same. The girls will go anywhere with me.
And so I think that's one thing I did was I made myself go somewhere, and I did try new things, just to get out there and, And
that's good for, your headspace.
Yeah.
Because,
it gave me something to concentrate on that wasn't all the issues that I had going on. If I was trying to learn how to do something new, I'd never played golf before. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So if I was there and I was trying to take it all in, or I was taking a lesson, it gave me a break from the lonely.
Yeah.
I think.
I like that, trying something new. So with us talking about mental health, that is a slippery slope. Like on a Friday night, when I'm done work, I will go home and put my pajama pants on or my camo sweatpants that I wear every day. And there are days that I'm in those sweatpants all weekend. So that's where I've got to get to the point where it doesn't matter. Saturday night we're doing something. This weekend I booked stuff. Hudson has stuff at this little gymnastics place. So I'm she's doing that. I said to Morgan, we're putting on real clothes and going, let's go to dinner. Just, even if, again, I'm relying on her, but I feel like she's in that same place because she's trying to help me. So if I don't get out of my pajamas, she's not. So at any point in time, and this is another question, did you feel like I need to go get on medication or I need to do something further? Because I'm in that pit of, I don't even know if it's loneliness, sadness, grief, and just... It's where you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
I think a couple months after John passed, I went to the doctor and I was like, don't you think I need a little something here to help me, and I don't think, you're depressed, of course.
Yes, that's exactly the word it is. It is depression.
Yeah. And I think I took something for maybe a couple months, and truthfully, I could not tell that I felt different.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, this isn't helping me. So I quit taking it. Some people, it works. I would never say don't go by what your doctor, offers you if you think it's something that would benefit you. But for me, it didn't. I could tell no difference at all. So I was like, there's no point in me taking this pill.
Yeah, because you got to take a pill every single day. Yeah.
If I don't see a difference. And I think it was just, I was expecting if I took this pill, I would feel great. And you're not going to feel great. You have to do things to fill your time, and you have to look after yourself, and you have to exercise. And those are the things that will make you feel more empowered to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I have a couple of friends that are like, just go get on something. And I'm like, I have thyroid issues, so I already take meds every day. And I forget them it's the same pill every morning. It's sitting on my nightstand, and I will come to work and go, damn it, I forgot to take that. So I don't want to add anything. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to, but like I said, like I'm in it, I feel like I just don't see the light. Like it's just like a ton of bricks on me, and I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I don't know if, if there's a point in time.
I think the more days that passed for me, something fun would happen or something funny would happen.
Yeah.
Or the kids would do something that I was so proud of. And it was like I started seeing more and more of those moments, because the first 6 months I did feel like my life is over.
Yeah.
I felt like
that's where I'm at.
I just have to keep doing all these things and I'm never going to be happy again.
Yeah.
And the more time that went by, I realized the world is still turning, and my kids do things that are super cool, and I've gotten to do a lot of neat things, and I have more good days. It's like you don't realize all of a sudden you'll go along and you're ready for bed, and it's like, today was really good,
Yeah.
And I think it just takes time. And I don't know the answer to, it's not 3 months and, 12 hours.
Yeah, there's
it's different
not.
for different people,
for
because
everybody.
we all have such a different makeup, But before John passed away, I was always a pretty optimistic and upbeat person, and I liked life.
That's me.
And so I feel like even though I went through this, that's who I still am. I still want to do things. I'm still optimistic, so.
Yeah, I guess that's probably where I'm struggling, is because that is me. I am like funny and fun, and let's go do this, and I feel myself like pulling in so much more than I ever did. Like, I don't want to go anywhere. Like, I never want to go anywhere. I don't want to put regular clothes on.
Yeah.
Like, like you said.
Yeah.
So
I think it came back for me.
Yeah.
It was gradual, but I know in the beginning I was like just in this fog of whenever we'd go places, if it was somebody's birthday or something happened, I was like, I could care less about this. And just with time, I got to the point where I laughed at something somebody said.
Yeah.
And it just happened more and more until I realized, okay, I'm still alive.
Yeah. Is there any, this was, and you guys are asking questions on Facebook and TikTok, which we appreciate. So moving forward, we're going to put more content on Facebook and TikTok. We're going to make shorter videos, but the questions you guys ask are great, and we try to answer them. So you guys can keep them coming. The last one, there was one more that I wanted to hit today. Oh, how do you, and this is people, it's like, is there a point where like you get up in the morning, is there a day or a time where you're like, I feel like I can see a good future, or like I'm good, like I know we got this and things are going to be okay? Was there, a point in time where you said, I'm good, I can do this, and this is my life, and I'm okay with it, and you're optimistic about it? Because a lot of people, like a lot of the messages I get, I'll be honest, they're really sad, and I'll read these people's stories, and they're so sad, and my heart breaks for you, all these people, but I'm still in that sadness, so I get it, but I don't want to be. Like I like you said, my character is funny and outgoing and to do stuff. So did something change in you? Did something happen? Was there a point where something, like you said, the kids do, and again, Hudson will do or say something funny, and I will laugh. And we call them Mike-isms now. Like Hudson will say or do something, I'm like, okay, that is Mike. We're no Mike-isms. The way Morgan drives reminds me of Mike. I'm like, you drive like Mike, I can't be in the car with you. Right. So I can laugh about that, but it's like, was there a turning point, I guess, is what people keep asking me, what's the turning point? I don't friggin' know.
I think for me, the turning point was when I got all of the business taken care of. Like, because right now you're so overwhelmed with these loose ends.
Yes.
And I would say that it probably took me 8 or 9 months to feel like I had a good handle on
you have control.
Our business, our bills, and day-to-day life. And I saw, oh, okay, well, we still have a place to live, and I paid all the bills, and and then it was like I planned things with my kids, or I planned things with people, and that was something for me to look forward to. And in the beginning, it felt like I had so much to do, there was nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that to my counselor. I was like, I love life, and there's not a damn thing I look forward to.
Yep.
And
that's me. I mean,
so I remember saying
best,
that, and I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
So I think once all of the loose ends kind of tied up, and I felt like I had a good handle on things, and then I did start doing things with other people and going out with my friends again, and I started having a good time again. And my life will never be exactly like it was before, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be fantastic. It's just different.
I think that gives people, because like I said, a lot of the stories that I get are really sad, and people email me and all kinds of stuff, but I think just you saying that, like, even for me, because like I feel like, okay, I can do that, because I right now I do feel like I pretty much tied up all the loose ends. Like the last couple of things I had to do were a pain in the ass, but they're done. And we had a trip planned in December that Mike and I had already booked, the hotels, everything. So I'm going to keep that trip. So right now that is a trip. That's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm even saying just get to that trip, because it's going to be, we're doing the Polar Express. So that's, really what I have. But I don't know. Like I've got all the loose ends tied up. We still have a house. We still have a car. Everything is okay. I can make it, but it's like, the only thing I have to look forward to really is that trip. And I know Hudson's going to love it, and so I'm like living I feel like I'm living just for that right now.
Yeah.
And that's where I don't know what to do with that feeling. Like, I mean, there's not an amount of therapy that's going to get me out of that. Like, it's depression, and that's what it is. And I don't want to take medication. I'll be honest. I just don't.
Right.
So I'm a person I'd rather push through, but I probably need to start planning things. I think that's a good idea.
Smaller. You're going on a trip, but before that, plan that you guys are going somewhere for the day.
Yeah. I even just need I got to do more stuff with like friends, and that is not so focused on family, because when you do all family, you realize that you're missing that one person in your family. So I need to do that too, which I know, and make sure that the girls are doing stuff that's not with me, and not that they're that's kind of what I'm trying to do too. The last question is, when did you stop wearing your wedding ring? We got that question a lot.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I actually didn't stop wearing my wedding ring because we had our wedding rings
I knew that,
tattooed.
yeah.
So when we'd been married 20 years, our last name was Bird, and we both have a bird tattoo. And
you have lots of birds on you.
Yeah. And so I never wore a wedding ring. That was...
Yeah.
And it's not like it's coming off.
Nope. Yeah.
I think that is such a good question, because I have a male friend who lost his wife, and he asked me the same thing. He was like, he said, is it bad if I take my wedding ring off?
I don't know either.
Yeah. Because, in your heart, I think you're always going to feel like you're married, and so if you want to wear it the rest of your days, go right ahead. But if you want to take it off, that's okay too.
Yeah.
And I think it's different for different people. I didn't have to take mine off.
Yeah.
But it'll always be part of me, so it's not something that I forget it's even there.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on the person, and if it brings you comfort to have it on, then do it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, keep it somewhere special or safe.
Yeah, I don't wear my actual ring. I wear the band, and I've worn it for like. Actually, a year before we moved here, Mike bought me new bands, and I loved it. He bought me two, and so I always wore the one. So for 10, 11, 12 years now, maybe, I just wore the band.
Yeah.
And I shower and I don't really take it off. So when I take it off, it feels awkward to me. So I don't know. So that question people kept asking, and I'm like, well, if you watch the podcast, you can clearly see I'm still wearing mine. And I knew yours was tattooed, but it was a question that we get asked.
Right.
So I would say if you're going to date, you probably should take it off. But other than that, it's your level.
That's one thing, like with us being in healthcare, we weren't allowed to wear jewelry anywhere. And so when I didn't work in the hospital as a nurse anymore was when John died.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to go back to the hospital and work as a nurse there. And so I'd never been able to wear any jewelry.
Yeah.
And so like I bought a couple rings and I was like, I never got to wear these before. And so I started wearing rings, and some of them cover my tattoo and some of them don't. But that was just something so it never kind of correlated with me.
Yeah.
I'm taking this off now.
And I never wore a ring in the beginning. And then when we moved here, I went, about a year before we moved here, I left healthcare and said, I'm going to go be a trainer full time. And we were here on vacation, and Mike gave me these bands that I actually picked them out and was, basically hinted every way possible. I want these.
One.
Yeah, these are the ones, get these. So that's when I started wearing it, and I was a trainer, and Mike was like, you're working in a gym with all men. I want you, So that's when I kind of started wearing a band. But I never in the beginning wore a ring, and he which was so awkward, never took his off. He got one specifically that he could wear while he was working. And I was like, you could get electrocuted, doing stuff that you do. And he was like, I don't care. But, his was with tungsten or made out of something different and it was very thin. It was a wide band, and it was even weird when I went to the funeral home and they were like, do you want his wedding ring? And I was like, I don't know. I have it. But, it's so beat up because he never took it off. There's so many scratches and marks, and he wore it to the gym. So, so for me, I'm still wearing mine. I've tried, going out and taking it off. I'll put it in my purse, so it feels weird. But, at some point. So those were our topics for today. And this was probably the last full podcast that we'll do. We're going to do some smaller ones. The family one was the biggest. The dating question was a number. And then, like I said, we've gotten a lot of stories that you guys have shared with us, and I appreciate it, and the TikTok stuff as well. But, some of those we can't answer, and I'm not there, and we don't know the answer. So some of them are legal questions that I don't know. So that's why we had a counselor on. That's why we had a lawyer on. The life insurance thing was another thing I wanted to discuss. But again, find a representative that you trust and do that. That's another thing I would encourage you to do. But moving forward, we're going to do some smaller versions of these. So if you have a good questions, we're going to probably answer one or two questions, but this is our journey and our story. So we're not telling you how to live your life or what to do. We're just saying this is where we're at, and this is what we've done, and this is our life and how we've perceived it and how we've moved through this journey. And for me, this was helpful. I think you're more of an introvert, so some of the stories that you said I didn't even know, and I've known you, for a long time. So we're both I keep my feelings really close. I hate talking about feelings and emotions. I'm not affectionate. I'm not someone that's going to hold your hand. That's just not me. So a lot of these topics are hard for me, and especially to I have to not want to cry. So, but anyway. If you have other questions, you can send them in. You guys can still email. You can do it on TikTok. You can do it on Facebook. But moving forward, I think we're going to probably do smaller versions of these or shorter versions, and they will be on TikTok and Facebook and still YouTube and Spotify. But Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks.
This is Widowhood.